Hi, friends. It's Dr. Russ. Happy spring. It's gorgeous. I have been very busy with the practice, some positive changes taking place in my practice, changing my fee structure. I've hired a new person. I'm changing my schedule and the different appointment types that I have. I realized that as the pandemic wore on and the price of everything went up, I had to increase my prices as well. Partly because everything was getting more expensive for me, and partly because I just couldn't see as many people because of all, obviously, the cleaning and the social distancing. Um, and as things progressed and we started coming out of the pandemic, I realized that my prices were too high. So I did something that not a lot of businesses do. Actually, I'm lowering my prices. This is not only necessary for my patients, but it's necessary for me. I never wanted or intended my practice to be exclusive or expensive. I don't want to be inaccessible. I want people to come and see me. I know that body work is like food. Touch is nourishing and necessary for people, and professional touch is really something special. And when it's knowledgeable and directed at pain, um, it can be extremely transformational. And that's part of what I want to talk about in this video today, is how do we set up our practice for success? We did one months ago about sustainable practice, and I kind of laid out my thoughts about how do you set up your practice for the long term. Well, this is more how do you approach each patient in such a way as to maximize the chances that you're going to have a successful interaction with them. Success in terms of the results that they get, the way that they feel during and after the session, and success in terms of the success of your business. Because as always, we are dealing with the human side, which is our desire, our true desire to use our gifts and skills for the betterment of our community and the world at large, and uh, ease the suffering that exists in the world. And the business side is we want to make a living and have a home and stable source of food and be able to take vacations and buy clothes and the things that we need and raise families and have cars. And those are all business things. We need money in order to do that. So both of these things are really important. Today is really this video is a lot about both. Kind of how do those things intersect? Because I think the bottom line is that your business will be successful when your patients or clients feel that they're being cared for. I also want to take a moment to say a special thanks to people who are channel members. I know I have not been uploading at the same pace that I was all of 2023. That's been necessary for my own mental health as well as the health of my practice, and really been focusing on the patients and the transformations that I was just referring to earlier. So the plan is to get back into the swing. If you're in the Portland area, by the way, anywhere near here, and you would like to be in a video, that is absolutely available to you. Get in touch with me. The contact link is always in every video description. And we'll set up a session. We'll talk about your health and make sure that this would be appropriate for you. We would have a couple of simple forms for you to sign and really discuss what your needs and goals are for the session. And you can be in one of my videos. I need subjects for my videos always. So let's get into today's topic. 5 things successful body workers do. Okay, so what do I know? Well, I've been in practice a while. I've had my ups and downs, and I've learned some things along the way. So I'm just hoping to share my perspective on how a practice thrives and how people thrive. Because when your patients thrive, you thrive, because they go and their friends say, boy, your shoulder and your hip and your low back or your neck or whatever was going on with you before isn't going on with you now. You know, what happened? And they say, well, Dr. Russ, I saw Dr. Russ, you should see him. And that's how your practice grows. You can spend a lot of money on marketing, and you might need to. And you can spend a lot of time with emails and social media, and you might need to. But your best source of new patients will always be from referral, because those people come in expecting to like you, and they're sort of self-selecting. And that just makes for a better relationship. It's greater potential for this whole thing to work out when someone has a referral. So this right here is kind of the bottom line. Positive change occurs in an environment of safety and support. And that's true for me, and that's true for you, and it's true for everyone who comes in to see you. So you want a positive environment of safety and support for yourself. When you walk into work, that's how you want to feel, safe and supported. And that's what your patients and clients want to feel when they come to see you. Physically safe, emotionally safe, and supported in their desire to get better. Because anytime anyone comes to see you, there's really only one reason. It's because they want to feel better. And so you can create an environment that supports that, encourages that, in which they will thrive. And it often takes people time to get to know us, to get to trust us. Sometimes it's a few visits before they're ready to really talk about the thing that's really bothering them. And I know I sound like a therapist right now, and kind of. We are a very specific type of therapist. We're body workers, movement therapists, and what we're doing, in addition to, of course, making structural change and reconditioning tissue and educating people about how to take better care of themselves and the exercises and things they can do to help whatever condition it is that they came in with. But in the end, we're helping them with regulation of their nervous system. We're helping them with their vagus nerve and their parasympathetic system, and helping them get into an internal state, physiological state that is conducive to the change of healing, whether that's healing an injury, changing their posture, changing how they breathe, changing how they move. All of that stuff is positive change, and it occurs best in an environment of safety and support. So these are the 5 things right here. Here's my list. I'm spoiling the video right now. This is it. You don't have to wait to the end to know what they are. You need to listen and connect with your person. That's one thing. Anyone who comes in, they need to be heard. They need to know that you're listening and connecting to them and their issue and their goal, so that you have heard and understand who they are, why they're there, what they want, and where they want to go. Number 1, listen and connect. Number 2, assess constantly. As body workers, we definitely can get into a little bit of a mindset of change, work out this trigger point, adjust this bone, and all the energy is going in that direction from us into them. And sometimes that's necessary, but if you're not listening with your hands and observing with your eyes, as well as listening with your ears and your mind and your heart, you're missing stuff. So as you are working through a trigger point, as you are setting a vertebra up for an adjustment, there's feedback coming into your hands too. And you want to be attending to that always, all the time. After you make an adjustment, feel the range of motion, feel the tissue tone, feel the vertebral alignment and the intersegmental mobility. Have those things changed? In what way? Number 3, handle with care. Handle your patients with care. I don't mean tentatively, but I do mean with care. A great piece of advice I got was that as you're setting your patient up for an adjustment, especially if they're new to you, treat them like they are your elderly osteoporotic grandmother. That's how you want to handle their body. And you feel, once you've had some experience under your belt, you feel a person sort of melt into your gentle touch because, oh, it was way more gentle than I expected. And, oh, this touch feels really good, which is another thing about constantly assessing. You know, your questioning, listening, assessing touch, your palpation should feel therapeutic to the patient. It should feel good because people are there if they're there to see you. Probably they like being touched. So that's another thing. Number 3, communicate transparently. Be in the moment, present and open with people. Tell them what you know. Tell them what you don't know. Ask the questions you need to ask. Tell them what you need to do in order to find out what you need to know but don't yet know, and so on. We don't want hidden agendas, and we don't want to hold information back to spring on them at another time. And I know that I'm working against some of the models, especially in chiropractic these days, about what to divulge to people about what you know. On the one hand, so this kind of goes against my whole being, but I'm understanding that some people are learning this model of not telling patients the potential outcomes or sequelae of their condition because you're like planting it in their mind and you're making them anxious when there doesn't need to be. I don't ascribe to that at all. I think people have a right to know. They're going to find out anyway because there's Google. So I would rather them hear it from me, where it's going to be true and complete and specific to their condition and their situation, and give them a chance to ask questions. So transparency, really important. And finally, number 5, very important, is about you. And I'm pointing at me because I'm the you right now. It's prioritize your self-care. You have to take care of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally. Sleep, exercise, movement, diet. That doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have problems, and it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have bad days. But your wellness has to be one of the most important things about your practice, because your practice is you. And so how you show up has everything to do with the other person's experience of it. So let's get into the first thing, listening and connecting. Let them tell their story. I don't know if you've been to the doctor with a problem recently, but if you have, and I have, you probably have thought quite a bit about what you're going to tell them, what's hurting and how long and why you think it's happening and how it's affected you. And, you're really upset because you're sick and you don't want to be sick and you're missing work and you got a story to tell. And it's not going to be easy for you to listen to what the doctor says until you have had a chance to say what you need to say. That is how I approach every person when they come in, especially new people, but returning patients as well. They're there for a reason. I want to know what that reason is. So let them tell their story. Another part of listening is asking questions. Asking questions not only helps you flesh out in your mind, and, as a diagnostician, you've got your decision tree of, well, there's pain in the arm. Does it hurt when you cough, et cetera? Is there weakness? Is there numbness? If there is, if there isn't, you ask different questions. Number 1, that's part of your assessment and intake. But number 2, that really demonstrates to the person that you heard what they said because you're asking questions about it. You want more information, and it also demonstrates to them that you care, and that is really, really super important. So let them know you have questions, and then ask them questions and keep asking questions, as many as you need, until you feel settled in your diagnostic options and your treatment options, and you're ready to move forward. Don't move on into treatment until you feel confident that you understand the patient's problem. Help them feel confident that you understand their problem by feeding back to them what you just heard. When I was in my second trimester of chiropractic school, I woke up one morning with severe vertigo. I mean, the world was spinning. I was 26 at the time, young, and this had never happened to me before. Of course, I had been dizzy, but not just like I turned over in bed and woof, everything spun. At the time, I was taking neuroanatomy and I was learning about strokes. And of course, I thought, oh no, I just had a stroke. This is my life forever. And you should know that when your patient comes to see you, if they have sudden or chronic pain, one question on their mind is this forever? Is this ever going to go away? So anyway, I went into the student clinic because that's what was available to me. And I was interviewed, intake, and examined by Dr. Tom McLuhan. Shout out Dr. Tom. Great teacher, great chiropractor. And he let me tell my story, even though some of it was not relevant, right? What's relevant is the world is spinning. I'm dizzy and I don't know why. But I had to tell him the whole story, that I was in bed and I turned over in bed and everything started spinning, and how hard it was to get dressed and how I was like practically staggering as I was walking into the clinic. I had to tell him all of that stuff before I could listen to him. And I also told him that I thought I was having a stroke. So he did the most amazing thing. He listened. He just listened. And he wrote it all down. And he asked questions. Okay. And this and that. And then he fed back to me what I said. He paraphrased some of it. Some of it was verbatim, the things that I had said, but he fed it right back to me. And I cannot tell you how reassuring that was. I was still dizzy, but I immediately felt better. Like he heard me, he cares, he listened, he understands what I'm saying. So whatever he's going to do next is based on why I'm here, because he heard me. And he said, you didn't have a stroke, you have vertigo, and you're going to be okay. And he was right, and I was, and I still occasionally have vertigo, but I know what to do. I do some of the little positional maneuvers. I teach this to patients all the time. If you've never had vertigo, good for you. It's really uncomfortable, and sometimes it goes chronic. Invite them to ask questions. After you've heard their story and you've asked them your questions and you have some idea of what's going on, tell them what you think is going on and let them know, do you have any questions? Let's take as much time as we need to make sure that you understand what's happening and what we're going to do. So then tell them what you think is going on and how you plan to proceed, and ask them for their consent at that point. Consent not just to treatment, but consent to hands-on examination and evaluation. So I might say, okay, Mrs. Jones, this shoulder pain sounds like it might be coming from a mild tear in your rotator cuff. So probably it happened when you were throwing the ball for your dog. And so there's some things that we can do to kind of assess which muscles, which part of the rotator cuff is involved, how bad it is, and whether or not I think it would be amenable to hands-on therapy, or maybe do we need some imaging. So I would ask you to change into a gown so we could look on skin, bra on or off, that's your choice. Off is easier for me, but your comfort is more important. And how does that sound? Can we do that? They'll say yes. So I'll say, okay, here's the gown. Step out of the room while they change. Give them a chance to say yes. Usually they will. Very rarely do they say no. They're there because that's what they want you to do. But the fact that you took a moment to explain what was going to happen and ask for their consent is huge in creating an atmosphere of safety and control. And patients are going to do better when they feel safe, when they feel in control, and when they feel that their needs are your priority. And that is kind of the bottom line of listening and connecting. Help them feel heard, help them feel cared for, give them that sense of safety. Nothing is going to happen without your permission. There will be no surprises. Give them a sense of control. I am asking your permission before I do these things. And all of those things just demonstrate to them, me as the doctor, I'm here for you. Now, I'm also, as we know from the business side and the human side, I'm here for me too. On the human side, I love doing this. I can't imagine doing anything else. And from the business side, like, I need patience. I got rent to pay. I got employees to pay. I got all these things. And I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad I'm here. But the crux of the whole matter is that the patient came in with an issue that they want my help with, and that is my priority. And I think people can feel that, whether that's true or not. I think they can tell. So make it true. Make it your job to put their needs first. I've set up my office in such a way that I'm comfortable. The lighting, the music, the furniture, the temperature, the way that I'm dressed, the height of the table, everything is already suited for me. So all the other stuff can just be about them. Let's talk about that assessment and the fact that every moment is an opportunity for you to be gathering information, observing their body language, feeling their tissues, how they respond, looking at their breathing. You know, if you're working a trigger point in, let's say, the rhomboid with one hand, your other hand is going to be resting on their body and listening, not pressing, listening, attending. Feel the breathing. Your body will be more relaxed. You'll be able to sustain the work throughout the day longer when you are relaxed. And one way to stay relaxed is to keep listening and observing, and keep the focus on them. And they're going to be thinking, and they're going to be paying a lot of attention to your touch. And when your touch has a questioning feel versus a dictating feel, it feels really different to people. And they relax more. And when they relax more, you can feel more, but also they heal better, because that's that neurological regulation piece. They're relaxed, they feel safe, they feel looked after, they don't feel like they need to guard against sudden increases in pressure, and that helps their circulation, that helps their parasympathetic nervous system kick in and gives them that experience of healing that they're looking for. That's not going to solve their problem right away, but it is really a necessary ingredient. Feel of the tissues and how they respond to the touch, and the way that they answer my questions, and eye contact or no eye contact, the tone of their voice, when they're telling me their story, does it feel like they're having to rush to get it out? All those things just are so informative, maybe not taken individually, but taken as a whole. So when I see someone, for example, avoiding eye contact and speaking sort of haltingly and not really breathing very well, I know that they're anxious. They may be anxious about their pain or their condition. They may be anxious about me. What's he going to do? Who is this guy? Is he going to break my neck? Right? So when someone's anxious, that really changes the way that I approach them, which brings us to the next one. Always, always handle with care. No matter how big, no matter their age, no matter their build, or the proportion of muscle to bone to fat or whatever, people want to be treated respectfully, and they deserve to be treated respectfully. I have been manhandled, kind of just pushed, and it seems always to be sort of in service of the chiropractor's schedule. They're in a hurry and they want to get me out of there in 8 minutes or 5 or whatever it is. And so they're kind of throwing me around. It doesn't feel good. Again, your elderly osteoporotic grandmother, that is how you should be touching people. And that's not to say tentatively, it's to say gently and with care and respect. Way back in the day, I was going to some seminars. I won't name names, but this instructor, the person leading the seminars, was so incredibly disrespectful. The way that he spoke to the people, the way that he would if he needed to kind of bring the waistband of the pants down, an inch or two so you can get to the sacral base or the SI joints, gently, tuck a towel in there, bring it down a little bit, or ask the patient to do it. He would yank it halfway down their butt. It's not okay. Okay, maybe you do need to expose part of the buttocks in order to do what you need to do, but don't yank. Another time, I don't know why I'm off on this tangent, but I guess it made me angry. He was talking about orthotics, and someone in the class volunteered to be his subject, and he threw their orthotics in the trash. I thought it was, they probably were $300 or $400 insoles, and he just threw them away. And of course, they're not destroyed, but she had to go into the trash can to get them. How would I feel as a patient if a doctor did that? I would be outraged, and and it's horrible because your patient, in a way, is a little bit stuck, especially if they've disrobed. It's not easy for them to get out of this situation. So it's so important to me as a patient, client, and a provider that this is a respectful interaction. I respect your humanity. I respect your autonomy. I respect the choices that you have made that have brought you to this place. Another way that patients often feel disrespected is the sense that a doctor gives them is well, of course you are hurt. What did you expect? You threw the ball for your dog for 30 minutes a day for 20 years, and sure, you wore your shoulder out. That's just a dumb thing to say to somebody. What's the point? All you're going to do is make them feel bad. All you're going to do is create bad blood. So handle people with care, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Remember, you are in a position of power and authority in this relationship. You can do things that they cannot do, right? I can ask them to change into a gown. I'm not going to, they can't ask me to change into a gown. That's a one-way street. That's just one example of the power dynamic that's at play in doctor-patient or massage therapist-client or whatever your chosen profession may be. Remember that. You hold power in the relationship, so use it wisely, young Jedi. Transparent communications. State your intention. Acknowledge your limitations. Let them know. These are the things that I do. As this condition, let's say it's a herniated disc, is multifactorial. We've got tissue damage, we've got inflammation, we've got neurological irritation, we've got muscle spasm. You're also probably the patient super freaked out because the pain is horrible, right? These are the aspects of this condition that the tools that I have are able to address. And these are the aspects where we're going to need to call in some other types of providers or do some other things that are not about office visits and hands-on. It's really important to acknowledge that and stay in your lane, so to speak. Be open and transparent about what you see, what you feel, and what you think. And again, not judging them. It's not about their character or that they were dumb to have ran the red light or, it's their fault they got rear-ended or whatever it is. Just like this is a fairly serious injury. You have sprained this knee pretty badly, and this is probably going to take several months to heal. I recommend that you take the next 2 weeks to focus on the inflammation, give it lots of rest, and do these anti-inflammatory measures. And then at that time, if it's not significantly better, we're going to have to think about imaging and a referral. Yes, potentially for surgery. Sometimes that needs a correction. Just lay it out for them. Get it on the table. Write it down. Send it to them later in an email if they feel like it's too much information for them. But lay out your plan. Let them know what you're thinking and what you plan to do. Again, give them an opportunity to say yes or no. Sometimes they'll say no. And great, I love a no. Now I know you don't want what I have to offer. Wonderful. I'm glad you came in. Now we can both move on. But more often, you'll get a yes. And then it's a yes. And by the way, consent needs to be reinstituted. Just because they say yes on the first visit doesn't mean yes to all the same things on the second, third, fourth, fifth visit. Ask again. I always ask if I can adjust the neck in particular. I always ask if I'm going to do any contacts around the hip or the butt. Always. May I do this? Would you like me to adjust your neck? May I roll up these shorts so that we can work on this hip muscle? Just ask. People like to say yes. They want to have the opportunity to say yes or no. And if they say no, you have to accept the no. Finally, tell them what you need and expect from them. Logistically, how many visits, how often, how long will they be? Is the treatment going to be painful? Is the treatment going to be pleasant? Is it going to be a combination of those things? Financially, this is an important part of the relationship. We live in a capitalist society, and we're getting paid for our time and paid for our effort and our services, which is appropriate in a capitalist system. But you need let people know this is what I think it's going to cost. My fees are transparent. It's when you make the appointment, they're right there. Tell them what you're going to need from them in terms of their contribution in self-care, homework, exercise, stretch, sleep, food, rest, ice, over-the-counter anti-inflammatories, supplements, imaging. Kind of just tell them from the beginning, this is kind of what I think this whole thing is going to look like. Finally, we got to talk about ourselves as the providers. How do we prioritize our own well-being in order to make sure that we show up in a way that's the best we can be that day? And if you sustain a career over many years, you're going to show up in different ways as time goes by, and that's okay. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to grow. You are allowed to have bad days. You are allowed to have chronic pain. You are allowed to have chronic illness. You do not need to be perfectly healthy in order to be a magnificent and wonderfully successful provider of healing and body work. You're even allowed to occasionally feel burnout. It's inevitable. Everybody gets into ruts. Everybody feels like tired. And sometimes this tiredness is sustained over days, weeks, and months. And that's kind of the definition of burnout. That's okay. The question is, how often does that happen? And what do you do about it when it does happen? Is your approach to your job sustainable. So I think about the last 26 years of my life and being in practice, and really the things that I built my life and structured my days around was making sure that I had the best chance of being at my best at work, and number two, taking care of my family. Those were always the two most important things in my mind. And that dictated what I ate. It dictated when I went to bed, what time I woke up, how much exercise I get. It dictated even things for many years, such as like what kind of TV and movies I would expose myself to. I don't know if you get this about me, but I'm kind of a sensitive person, and I don't really do well with super intense visual stimulation in TV and movies. Mostly I'm talking about violence. It doesn't suit me. And of course it's stimulating and it's engaging and interesting, but it sort of leaves me feeling a little not my best. And so minimizing that has been a priority. And there's been a lot of movies that have come out and people have watched and loved and talked about. And I'm like, I just can't watch that. I watched Breaking Bad. I watched the whole thing. It was so amazingly good. But my employee at the time, Summer, hi Summer, she came up to me. She was like, Dr. Russ, you seem depressed. Are you okay? You seem really tired and depressed and distracted lately. I was like, damn, wow. First of all, thank you. Like calling me out. I appreciate that. Number two, yeah, I'm watching Breaking Bad. And she's like, you can't do that. You can't do that. And she's right. And so for me anyway, and maybe for you too, part of the deal of this kind of work is, on the one hand, the personal growth is built in because on a daily basis, you are present with people who are going through change and transformation, and that becomes part of your life. The other side of that coin is that the requirement for your self-care is greater in order for you to continue to show up in a way that is going to be sustainable and present and create a environment where you can show up in this way, ready to listen, ready to be transparent with your communication, ready to handle people respectfully and with care. And so prioritizing your self-care, it's super, super important because none of this works without you. So again, you're allowed to get sick. You're allowed to have bad days, weeks, and months. You're allowed to be in pain. You don't have to be perfect. The question is, do you have a sustainable approach? And what do you do when you're not feeling well? How do you care for yourself? Really important thing, and I know it's getting late. It's 30 minutes here. So I'm going to wrap it up in a minute. But keeping yourself curious is as important as keeping yourself in good physical condition. Taking classes, learning new things so that when you come into work on a Monday morning, there's something interesting. Like, I want to see, does this work? And we just did this whole class on feet and ankles. Like, I wonder, am I going to see a foot or ankle today? And I'm going to approach it in a new way. It gets you back into your listening. It gets you back into your curiosity, your always be assessing mindset. And so I'm a really big proponent of constant continuing education. And that's kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing. This helps me, and I hope it helps you too. If you're still watching 33 minutes into this video, yay, thank you. If you have fallen asleep, I wish you sweet dreams. As always, I so appreciate your attention, your views, and I look forward to more videos in the future. Dr. Russ out.